Welcome to Investing Uncensored. I'm your host, Andre Stewart. And today I want to talk about this narrative that goes around. Everyone knows there's a narrative, whether it be in the media or on social media or whatever the case is, about highly successful people, whether it be Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett. They say highly successful people have a high IQ, which is not correct. You have a bunch of people that are rich who are an investor, may have just be a regular entrepreneur. They might just have a business. They might be a YouTuber. They're successful too, and they don't all have a high IQ. What they do have is the abilities to not reinvent the wheel. A lot of times when you're getting into a new industry or trying to start a business or whatever that is, you try to reinvent the wheel and change what the people that came before you did, and that's a problem. But what I can say is everyone that I just mentioned, or people that are successful, they possess a high EQ. They have a high emotional intelligence, because you need that for sure over more than needing a very high IQ to do anything, because anybody can pick up a book and read directions. But there's 7 success principles that you have to have in order to be successful. And it more so comes down to behaviors. There's actually 7 behaviors that you should avoid. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's go. The number one thing that people with high EQs, or I would say people that the 7 behaviors that people choose to avoid, the number one would be they don't live in the past. A lot of times what prevents people from being successful is because they might make a mistake, or they might live like, you know what, oh man, I remember that one time I did this deal and it didn't work out right. And so they're still harboring, oh, I remember that one time I tried to start this business and it didn't go so well. They're still holding on to the fact that they started something and it didn't work out. And so now they're scared. It's almost like having PTSD from whatever that was. Like, it was in the past, it happened, move on from it. And people that have a high EQ, they don't really dwell on things like that. They're just like, okay, it happened. That was an experience. I learned from it. I'm gonna move on from it. When you're an entrepreneur or when you're an investor, let's use investing for example. If you make a bad deal and you got through it, it could have hurt, it could have sucked. If you always dwell on that deal that you did in the past, it's gonna be really hard for you to move forward, because now you're gonna be scared to move forward. I think I talk about in the book, The Epitome of the Mind, change happens in an instant. So like a person can be driving their car and be a great driver. All of a sudden they get into a car accident and boom, they don't wanna drive anymore. But that's because that person is still living in the past about that accident that they had, even though they never had an accident for 30 or 40 years. They're stuck in that moment and now they don't want to move forward. And that's kind of how people are when it comes to business or when it comes to investing. I remember when I got into doing stocks, I was trying to short options, and I got burned multiple times trying to do shorts on options. And I was good at doing calls, but when I started trying to do puts, I started getting smacked. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's like, okay, well, again, I just learned from it. If I stayed with that mindset, like, man, I kept getting thumped when I was doing puts, I don't want to be an investor anymore, then it would prevent me from making money in that space, which is, I mean, you kind of got to get into stocks in some form, whether it be mutual funds or whatever that case is, as you progress in your investing career. So that's the number one thing they don't do. They don't live in the past. They keep moving and they move on to the next thing. The next thing they do is they don't worry about making mistakes. That's just a part of the process. Like, if you've never been an entrepreneur, how do you think you're gonna start a business and not make a mistake? If you have never invested in stocks, how do you think you're gonna get into becoming a great investor if you're not making a mistake? Yeah, you can do what I said earlier and not reinvent the wheel. That doesn't mean you're not gonna make a mistake. I always give the example of being a flipper. Almost every single person that I know, and I'm a lender, almost every single person that I've helped on their first deal, they made a mistake. Some have even went into foreclosure. They always make a mistake on their first deal. There's a bunch of podcasts that I've heard about similar situations. Some people don't even make their first deal for the first 2 years, but almost everyone loses money or goes over budget on their first deal. And you'll always hear me say, a mistake is only feedback. Everything that you do is only feedback. So if you made a mistake, it's because you did something wrong. That's what that's telling you. The mistake is feedback that you need to do something different than what you just did so that doesn't happen again. So that's the second thing. Don't worry about making a mistake. You got to make them, because that at least means that you're trying. The third thing they do is they don't get discouraged easily. I want to bring up my friend. I don't want to mention his name, just in case he's listening, but he did a real estate deal. I think it was like 7 to 10 grand. I think we were like 24 years old. He lost money on that deal. Since then, he has never, ever got into real estate again because of that one deal, his first time, and it was a passive deal. He put the money in. He wasn't even responsible for the full flip. And now he's just like, no, I'm good on real estate. He'll bring it up here and there, like, oh man, I want to do this, I want to do this, but he will just not do it because what he's living in the past, which is number one. He's jaded by the mistake, and now he's discouraged because of what happened. So you can see how those top three are already falling into place. But when you're an investor, man, like, or if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, if you get discouraged by anything, like any simple mistake, it's gonna be so hard for you to be successful because I mean, you're always gonna constantly be making mistakes. Like that's just a part of growing. That's like life. Like as a kid growing up, if you have kids, like they're gonna make mistakes, and that's just part of the experience of just learning how to navigate life. Number 4, people that are highly successful, they don't hold grudges and they don't really sit around and dwell on problems because you can't fix it. Think about a time, like really sit back now and think about a time where you had a problem and you just sat there on your couch or in the car and you just thought about it. It didn't change. It didn't fix. The problem was still the problem. Like if your lights are off and you don't have the money to pay the light bill to get them turned on, you sitting there thinking about it is not turning your lights on. It's not solving the problem. The problem is you need to figure out how to get some money. You need to go out there and talk to somebody to get help. You need to figure out how to not let it happen again, right? But those are the things, like you need to come up with a solution so it doesn't happen again. You're not dwelling on the problem. You're trying to come up with a solution to fix the problem, and you're gonna move on from it. And I mean, holding grudges, I have a business partner who I've been friends with for a long time, constantly making mistakes or constantly doing certain things. Other business partners that I've had, constantly doing certain things, maybe taking money. If I held grudges, it would be hard for me to want to move on and try to find someone else to partner up with. I do think that it's a lot easier to navigate a business with a partner, but it has to be the right partner. So me personally, I don't really like having partners. I'll do partners on deals, but I won't have a partner per se in my business. Not that I'm holding grudges, but just from my experience, I feel better navigating when I have total control. And so if I held grudges, I might be like, you know what? I don't want to partner up with anyone on anything at all. And so you don't want to do that. Like you want to move on and not hold grudges, whether that be in your relationship, but definitely when it comes to business and investing, these are the two things that you don't want to do. You don't want to hold grudges and you don't want to just dwell on problems because neither one of those, thinking about them all the time, change the equation. And the next thing, they don't prioritize perfection. Like you can't be a type A personality, which I believe I am slightly, and worry about always being perfect. No one's perfect. There's nothing that anyone can do that's perfect. For anyone out there thinking that they are, you're already like, you have imperfect thinking right there because you think that you're perfect. So boom, you can't do it. So don't go into becoming an investor, and it goes back to not making the mistake. When you're a perfectionist, you tend to try to overanalyze, try to over inundate yourself with information because you're scared of making a mistake because you're a perfectionist. What does that do? That limits your ability to, first of all, get started, but then also probably gives you some level of fear to even step out on faith to start that business or buy that stock or whatever the case could be. So like being a perfectionist can kind of limit you from being successful, whether it be like, you know what, I want to advance in my career. You may think you need to go do some kind of career development class versus just going ahead and applying for that position. And if you didn't get it, there's a reason why you didn't get it. Maybe you need to stay in your role a little bit longer to perfect that and then move on to something else. But just trying to be a perfectionist before moving on and making that a priority before you start something is something that people that are highly successful, they don't do. It's like, all right, I want to be an investor. I'm gonna just hop out there. I'm gonna make this mistake because I know I'm gonna learn from it. So you want to go out there as quickly as possible and make those mistakes. I think during 2020, I think it was a slogan going on: fail early, fail often, fail forward. That's kind of what you need to do when it comes to any of, like, I would say life period, but especially when it comes to business and investing, even in your career. And the other thing that I want to say, this is something that I'm pretty good at. Like, don't say yes to everyone. You can't say yes to everyone all the time, because if you do, there's research out there that says people that have a difficult time saying no tend to have more burnout, they tend to have more stress, and they tend to get more depressed than a person who has the ability to say yes, right? I mean, the ability to say no. Like, I'm all about, if I have something to do, I'm gonna prioritize whatever that is over something else that somebody might want to do as far as something with leisure. You know what I mean? So I think it depends on what it is, what you say yes to and what you say no to, but you can't always be a yes person. There's people out there that always say yes. They always say yes, even if they're tired, worn down, done work 50 hours that week, and then somebody's like, hey, come over here and do this. And they're like, all right, okay. So then you go over there, you don't have the right energy being there. Your immune system could be compromised because you are on a small amount of sleep. There's a lot of things that can occur if you are overloading your schedule. So you have to have the ability to say no, even when it comes to certain stocks, even when it comes to certain real estate deals. I don't say yes to every single deal. I'm gonna say no more times than I'm gonna say yes to a lot of things, because I want to make a smart decision. It's not like I'm being a perfectionist, but I make decisions based on data. A lot of stuff that I talk about is data driven. If you follow me on, my podcast or whatever the case is, I'm really data driven. So I'm not saying yes. Even if I get into an argument with somebody or discussion, I'm coming with facts. I'm coming with data to support whatever I'm saying. So if I tell somebody no to doing something, I'm going to give them the reason why I can't do it. I'm not just going to say no, I'm not doing it. I'm going to say no, and this is why I can't do it. So they can choose to understand it, or they can not feel bad because I am telling them no. So if you do tell someone no, have a reason behind it. Even if you don't want to give them a reason, it's not like you're entitled to always say yes. Don't feel like you're entitled to tell someone yes, right? And don't feel like you're entitled to give someone an explanation when you say no. Those are the 6 things that I think are very important. But number 7, and for me, I think this is the one that almost every successful person has to do. Whether that be, if you want to be successful in your relationship, if you want to be successful in business, if you want to be successful, period, in life. How many people like hanging around toxic people? Nobody. No one likes hanging around toxic people. So people that are really successful do not surround themselves with negative people. Nobody likes to be around that person that's always like, oh, this happened. Oh, this person. Oh, this. Oh my God, today this person did this. Oh my God, this girl at my job. Oh my, like, no one wants to be around a toxic person, because that ends up making you toxic, right? People know what it's like to be in a toxic relationship. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your mentality. It's not good for you in any aspect. So if you're trying to be successful, you got to hang around people that are positive, because one thing that it is a lot easier to hold on to negative thoughts. That's a fact. It's easier to hold on to negative thoughts and negative energy. But good for us that a negative thought doesn't manifest as quickly as a positive thought, because people tend to have more negative thoughts than they do positive ones. And that's why having a right mindset is so huge with becoming successful in any aspect of your life. So gotta be positive. That's the main thing for me. I don't want to say I was a negative person, but I had negative people in my life. So when it came time for me to make moves and I would talk to these people, I wouldn't make them, because they would make me second guess my thoughts on what I was going to do. Even if I spent a lot of time finding the data, me maybe talking to certain people and they were negative, it kind of prevented me from moving forward. So now my circle is small, and most of the people in my circle are positive. And if they are negative, I got a couple people that are negative. I tend to not tell them what I plan on doing. And that's kind of what you should do. I mean, there's a lot of shorts on YouTube that I see about people saying, don't tell anybody what you're gonna do. I tend to not tell anybody my plans for what I just said. And then I don't want someone to put a negative thought in my head about something that I really wanna do, because that changed your experience. Have you ever traveled with someone and they could have been toxic or they could have been negative, and then you went to that place and it could have been a great experience. But now when you remember this city or this place that you go to and you had a negative experience there, that negative experience is anchored in you. So when you go back to that place again, you might not even go back there, and it could be in a great place if you went with someone else. But now that negative anchor is inside of you, and it could be that city, it could be that restaurant, it could be that whatever, that gym or whatever it was in regards to that. So I think that to me is number 7, and it's probably the most important one, because the rest of those, if you're hanging around somebody negative, it's all gonna trickle down, or it's gonna all roll into 1 through 7. It's a lot easier if you're hanging around somebody that's negative, right? Because you can always think of a negative moment in your life, which again, that goes back to the past. So instead of doing all of those things, think about the positive moments that you've had in the past. On a recent episode of Mindset Mondays, I talked about that. I talked about values and being, positive and moving forward is kind of one of the things you got to do. Those are the 7 success principles that highly successful people use. It ain't about having a high IQ or a high intelligence. It's about 7 behaviors that you should avoid. Emotional intelligence is so huge because it allows you to read the room. I talked about this before, having sensory acuity. In order for you to have a high sensory acuity, you have to have a high emotional intelligence, because it allows you to look and see people, look at their body language, read the room per se. These are 7 habits. I talk about this in the real estate investing diet. We don't design our future, we design our habits, and our habits design our future. That's a quote from Miles Monroe. That's kind of how you should live. Like, think about the habits that you have on a daily basis, and how are those habits serving you in becoming successful in whatever aspects of your life that you're trying to do that with. So anyway, I wanted to hop on here and give you 7 success habits, not principles, that you should follow in order for you to reach the goal or the destination of what you're trying to reach in your career, whether it be investing, whether it be entrepreneurship, or whether it be just growing in your current position in your job. Until next time, take care.